Greetings of the day. I am Yatendra and I am working as Assistant Professor in the School of Business and Management, Jaipur National University, Jaipur. I welcome all of you in the second session of Information Technology in Management. In our previous session, we have discussed about the importance of information technology in management. We also discussed about the different type of devices. We discussed about the different type of softwares, and I shared a bit information on the information technology in management. In today's session, I'll be discussing in detail about the concepts of information technology outsourcing. So let's begin. Let's try to understand the meaning of this term, that is outsourcing. Outsourcing actually is the process of engaging a third party to handle some of your business activities. Now, this third party can be an individual or it can be an organization. I can have this third party either from my own country or I can have it from other countries, which means outsourcing is the process of engaging a third party either locally or internationally. Now, outsourcing has become a very common process for the organizations of all the sizes because outsourcing provides an opportunity to the organizations to grow, and that too without having a huge risk and without involving the huge investment. Now, if an organization outsources the information technology related activities such as website development and software developments, then this concept will be called as the information technology outsourcing. Let's try to understand this with the help of an example. For every organization, the data management is very, very crucial. Now, when I say the data management, it means how to store the data and how to maintain the data. If the organizations do this activity on their own, in that case, they have to purchase and maintain the data storage devices, which are very, very expensive. Hence, outsourcing, with the help of outsourcing, it is cheaper to contract a third party rather than to purchase and maintain the data storage devices and facilities. Now let us see what are the actual information technology related services that are commonly outsourced by the organizations. Some of the services includes the web development, then we have the hosting. I can outsource the software and application development. Then we have website and application maintenance or management. The organizations can outsource the technical support or they can outsource the database development and the management. Now let's talk about the examples of some of the companies that outsource. Here I have taken examples of 5 organizations. Now to start with, I would be discussing something about the Basecamp. And I'm sure that you all are aware about the Basecamp. Basecamp is the project management tool and it was developed by only 4 in-house programmers of the organization. And the company was doing great with the help of this tool. But with the influx of new clients, there was a huge mess in the development processes. It was then the company decided to expand its development department, and therefore it outsourced some of its technical functions to the foreign vendors. Now, when they adopted the information technology outsourcing, they were able to fix bugs and they were able to include new functionalities which further brought the worldwide fame to the product. Now, second example I would like to take is of the Curiosity Stream. Now, this is the particular organization which is focusing on providing documentary films to the audience for the world, all over the world. It is providing the documentary films. The streaming platform was developed by the technical team of the company which is situated in the United States of America. Again, this company was also doing very great. Now, at one point of time, the company was not able to manage the bugs, and speed related issues further negatively affected the users' experiences. Again, the company decided to outsource some of the technical activities to the outside vendor. So they hired 4 software engineers from the outside vendor, and they were able to manage bugs, and they were able to manage all the issues. Similarly, you will be shocked to know that a company like Google, it also outsourced some of its software development processes. Similarly, we have Presena. Presena deals with the mobile applications. It has also adopted the concept of information technology, or it has also adopted the concept of IT outsourcing. Next, we have the example of Slack. Slack is into the business of providing communication platforms. It has also adopted the information technology outsourcing. So now it's my advice to all of you to study about the companies that actually goes for information technology outsourcing, because you will be able to understand the main reasons why a company goes for information technology outsourcing. Now let us discuss about what are the main reasons for which a company outsources its business processes or its IT related activities to the third party. The first very important reason of outsourcing is the cost reduction. Suppose in my country, the labor cost is very high, the infrastructure cost is very high, and the tax system is very complicated. Now, to just get rid of this cost or to minimize this cost, I can select that location where all these costs are low. I'll be selecting that particular location for outsourcing where I'll be getting lower labor cost and where I'll be getting the lower operational costs. So that's why outsourcing is also considered as a concept of money saving. Now, the second big reason of outsourcing is the access to the skills that are unavailable locally. If I'm having scarcity of resources in my home, it is the possibility that these resources are available in abundance somewhere else. So same is the case with the organizations. Sometimes the organizations does not have the required skills and resources to perform or accomplish various processes. In that case, they are able to reach easily to the required skills and required resources by outsourcing. The next very important reason of outsourcing is the better use of internal resources. In my previous session, I gave you the examples of the processes of the organizations. For an organization, some of the processes are core in nature, and some of the processes comes under the category of non-core process. Now let's take an example. For example, the manufacturing is the core process of my organization, and I'm also looking after marketing, finance, and information related activities. So the information related activities will be considered as non-core process of my organization. And normally the companies and the organizations, they outsource such type of non-core processes to the third party. Now most of the organizations which don't go for information technology outsourcing, it means the processes related to the information technology will have to be done by the employees of the organization itself. Now it can be the situation that my employees are not competent enough with the concepts and techniques of information technology. So they will be utilizing their time in learning the concepts of the information technology and in learning how to implement those particular technologies in the organization. Now, because my employees are doing this work in which they are not competent enough, it means they are not devoting the time in the core process of my organization, that was the manufacturing. So if I outsource this information related activities to the third party, then I can make best use of my employees to work on the core process of my organization, which will further accelerate the core business process of my organization. And this was the next point. The next reason of outsourcing is sharing the risk. Now, when I'm not competent in a particular process, then obviously it is the possibility that I may not be able to accomplish that particular process in a perfect way. Risk arises of not accomplishing a task in a proper way. And even if I'm able to accomplish, it may be not of that particular quality. So, by outsourcing, we are actually throwing away all the responsibilities and associated risks with the particular process. Now, let's talk about why companies outsource in 2020. This is a pandemic situation, and we all are aware about the spread of coronavirus. Most of the organizations, they are no longer in the market, or they are no longer in the business because they are not able to generate sales. They are not able to increase their sales. They are not able to generate the revenues. Most of the employees, they have lost their jobs because organizations are not paying salaries. So this type of situation we all have seen, and this pandemic situation or the spread of coronavirus has actually given birth to the economic recession also. Now, the companies that are huge and which are having the huge information technology infrastructure, they are able to manage their business by adopting the online models. On the other hand, the organizations which are small and medium sized, those which were doing business in a traditional form, they were badly affected by this economic recession. But most of the organizations, they thought to continue their business by adopting the online model. And when I'm saying that you have to adopt an online model for the business, it means you have to run your business through the website. But then again, most of the organizations are not competent enough in doing their business with the help of a website. So these companies have outsourced the website development to the third party. And third party has given them the solutions in the form of a website where these companies are doing their businesses. So the organizations that have adopted IT outsourcing during the time of pandemic, they are managing their businesses and they are less affected by the economic crisis. Now, if I talk about the educational institutions, there was a big question mark in front of all the education institutions, whether it is a school, college, or university, on how to conduct the exam and how to promote students from one level to the other level. So again, they outsourced this work to the vendors, and vendors designed different type of online platforms where faculty members are taking classes of the students, they are conducting the online examinations. The proctoring is also possible with the help of these online platforms. So this is the way the organizations, those who have adopted the IT outsourcing, they were able to manage their business in the time of pandemic. Now let's talk about the disadvantages of the outsourcing. Now, when I outsource my IT related activities to a distant location or to a country which is at a huge distance from my own country, then obviously there is a difference in the time zones of both the countries. When my employees wants to communicate with the employees of my outsourcing vendor, because of time gap, they will not be able to communicate with each other, right? And this communication gap will further affect the development of my process by the vendor. Another disadvantage of outsourcing is the language barriers. Every country has its own language. Sometimes the employees of my organization are not able to understand the language of the employees of the outsourcing vendor. Sometimes I want to give an input for the process to the vendor, but he's not able to understand my language. Similarly, if he is putting up some questions to me related to the process, I'm not able to understand what he is saying. Again, this language barrier will affect the development of a process by the vendor. Now, next is the different work habits. Different work habit actually is the result of the different cultural environment. And this difference in the cultural environment or difference in the work habit will disturb the established workflow of my process. The second disadvantage of outsourcing is the long distance. Because I have selected that location which is very far from my country, so I may have to go for business visits. I may have to go to that country to meet the vendor just to see the progress of my processes, which means I'll have to go for business visits. But sometimes, because of long distance, these business visits are converted into the expensive and the full of tension experiences. The next disadvantage of outsourcing is the information risk. Obviously, when your processes are being handled by the vendor, he will be asking you about the information related to the process or the information related to the organization. This organization can be my USP, that is unique selling propositions. I have to share the data of my organization with the vendor so that he can be able to manage the processes of my organization in a perfect way. Now, as I'm sharing the information of my organization with the vendor, there are chances that this outsourcing vendor can share this information with my competitor, which will again be a very great disadvantage of me by adopting the outsourcing. Now, let's talk about the type of outsourcing. There are three types of outsourcings. The first one is the offshoring. The second one is the nearshoring, and third one is the onshoring. So let's start with the offshoring. Offshoring outsourcing is also called as offshore outsourcing. For example, a company which is situated in the United States, if it outsources its IT processes to the company which is located in China, then it becomes the example of the offshoring. Now, the companies that are adopting the offshoring, they have to face all the disadvantages which we have discussed just now. The company that is adopting the offshoring, again, they will have to face the differences in the time zone, they will have to face the language barriers, they will have to face the different work habits, which ultimately be affecting the development of my process by the vendor. The next type of outsourcing is the nearshoring. Now let's try to understand the nearshoring. When I outsource my IT related activities to that country which is very close to my country, then it becomes the example of nearshoring. For example, a company which is situated in Netherlands, if it is outsourcing its IT related activities to the vendor who is stationed or situated at Ukraine, then it becomes the example of nearshoring. Now, because the distance between the countries is not very huge, so there will be no difference in the time zones. And if there is a difference in the time zone, it will be only for a couple of hours, which can be managed easily. Now, when the distance between the companies is less, the organizations in both the countries will be having similar type of work habits. So there is no time constraint, there is no difference in the habits of working. So my vendor will be able to perfectly work or accomplish my process. Now, last one is the onshoring. Onshoring is also called as the home shoring. When you are selecting a location or when you are selecting that location which is within your national borders, then it is called as onshoring. For example, a company which is situated in, for example, a company which is situated in Delhi, if it is outsourcing some of the IT related activities to the company which is situated in the Bangalore, then it becomes the example of onshoring. So in onshoring, there is no problem of time zones, there is no problem of working habits, there is no problem of language barriers, but problem is one, that is the lack of resources and skills that are required by a particular process. So that's all I wanted to share with all of you in this session, and I'm requesting again to all of you to read about the companies that actually has adopted the IT outsourcing. The more you will read, the more will be the clarity in the concept. In my next session, I'll be discussing on some more interesting topics. Till that time, I wish all the best to all of you, and thanks a lot again.